Foxborough doesn't sleep, and today the message is pretty simple. Either we nail the details, or we pay for it again. There are big pieces shifting behind the scenes, and every call from here on out is going to tell us who's really steering the Patriot way. I'm going to pull one thread that starts with leadership, runs straight through pass rush, bumps into protecting our quarterback, and then lands on an internal move that could quietly reshape what 2026 looks like. You don't change the defense that carried you to the Super Bowl unless you're absolutely sure you know what you're doing. That's why this Vrabel move hit the way it did. Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissero said New England is moving Terrell Williams into a more high-ranking role inside the organization and will begin searching for a new defensive coordinator. And it's hard not to feel the weight of that, because during Williams' absence for most of the season, the guy actually calling the defense was inside linebackers coach Zach Kuhr. From week 2 on, he took the headset, handled defensive meetings, and earned real buy-in from the locker room. Here's the thing. This isn't a random staff shuffle. Kuhr didn't just fill in. He brought an edge to the weekly plan. Pressure looks that changed by the drive, timely heat that forced quarterbacks off their spot, adjustments that didn't feel late. In the playoffs, New England's defense was lights out, and that kind of rhythm doesn't show up by accident. When you change that chair now, you're not just swapping a name on a door, you're potentially changing the language of the system, the trust inside the room, and the entire week-to-week preparation. And that's where the Patriots Nation debate gets real. Do you keep what worked and elevate Kuhr, or do you bring in one of Vrabel's guys because he wants someone from his own circle? Let me put it to you clean, because I want the comments on this. Kuhr as DC, yes or no? 2 paths. If Vrabel keeps Kuhr, you protect continuity. You reward performance. You walk into 2026 polishing details instead of reteaching the playbook. That matters early in the season, when offenses are still finding their chemistry and the defense has to carry the water. If Vrabel goes outside the building, names like Shane Bowen or Jim Schwartz are out there, you get familiarity with Vrabel's preferences and maybe a different lens on trends around the league. But you also risk replacing an ascending voice with someone coming off a rough stretch, or in Schwartz's case, dealing with complicated contract logistics. Think about that for a second. The wrong hire here isn't just a staff decision. It's messing with the heartbeat of the unit that can decide whether 2026 is revenge or a repeat. Now, before we talk names, price tags, and trade packages, we've got to breathe and look at why the next conversation gets so loud this time of year. Once you reach a Super Bowl, every missing piece gets magnified. Analysts circle the same stars, fans dream bigger, and suddenly, it feels like every headline means a move is inevitable. But the NFL doesn't run on wishful thinking, and this specific situation is messy because it mixes frustration, loyalty, and another franchise's internal politics. The name that keeps getting brought up is Maxx Crosby. There's talk he could be moved this offseason, and the buzz has been tied to an alleged falling out with the Raiders over an injury situation. Albert Breer has emphasized Crosby's loyalty to the Raiders, while also pointing to a potential conflict with ownership and how communication around the injury in December left a mark. Nothing is confirmed yet. That's the reality. But it's enough smoke to make teams pick up the phone. Why does it matter so much in New England? Because elite pass rush is still the rarest, most expensive ingredient in the league. You can build a defense that's solid across the board, but if you don't have a guy who can win one-on-one in January, 3rd and long, end of the 4th quarter, you're asking for the margin to collapse. Crosby isn't just a sack total. He changes protections. He forces chips. He makes quarterbacks speed up their clock. If most of the 2025 core is coming back, adding a player like that is basically putting nitro in an engine that already runs. But here comes the argument that splits the fan base. Do you pay what it might take? Rumors have floated packages like multiple first-rounders. Or do you protect your draft capital and trust your own development pipeline? Be honest. Does the idea of paying that kind of price excite you, or does it make you nervous? And the two scenarios are extreme. If the Raiders actually open the door and New England somehow lands him, You instantly become the defense no one wants to see on a playoff run. Pressure shortens games, protects the secondary, and gives your offense more possessions and better field position. But if you get into a bidding war and lose, you've burned time and energy. If you win and overpay, you might be cutting into depth and flexibility for years. Plus, there's another layer. The Raiders' new head coach, Clint Kubiak, was asked about Crosby's future and made it clear he wants him as a foundation piece. If Kubiak helps smooth things over and Crosby stays put, that whole dream dies fast, and the Patriots still have to solve the pass rush question another way. Which brings us to a topic a lot of people would rather avoid after the Super Bowl: the left tackle spot. Everybody's acting like Will Campbell is suddenly a permanent problem because of one brutal night, like a single game can define a career. And I get where that emotion comes from. The Super Bowl loss to Seattle was ugly, and Campbell took heat because he gave up a flood of pressure. But that reaction ignores context, and it ignores something that carries serious weight in Foxborough. When the greatest offensive line voice in franchise history speaks, you listen. Dante Scarnecchia said he's not moving Campbell. He flat out said he'd put him right back at left tackle. That's not a motivational quote. That's a technical verdict. And it matters because protecting Drake May's blind side isn't a place to drift into experiments forever. Yes, Campbell struggled. Yes, he saw elite edge rushers. And yes, he returned from an MCL injury that clearly affected his mobility. But before that injury, he had stretches where he looked like one of the better rookie linemen in the league in terms of fundamentals, pass pro efficiency, and run-blocking competitiveness. Scarnecchia's point is basically this: what changed? Was it technique? Was it health? Was it the quality of the opponents ramping up? The answer is probably a mix, and the staff has to study it like maniacs this offseason. And that's where the Patriots Nation dilemma shows up again. Do you stay patient at tackle and build him up? Technique, conditioning, off-season work, better help with chips and protections? Or do you move him inside to guard for immediate stability? If you were the GM today, what would you do? No fear. Because the scenarios are clean. Keep him at tackle and you commit to development. You build the protection plan smarter, slide help, tight end chips, backfield releases timed to soften edge pressure, and you accept some early season volatility, hoping it settles into long-term stability. Move him inside and you might solve a short-term problem, but you create a new one that's even harder. Finding a real left tackle when you're picking late isn't some easy fix. Scarnecchia's warning is basically, good luck. Those guys don't just show up when you need them. And here's the quiet part nobody wants to say out loud. If that bet goes wrong, it doesn't matter what you do at pass rush or coordinator. If your quarterback is constantly under siege, your offense won't live in the red zone. Your third and long conversions die, and the whole team starts playing tight. Offensive line is where confidence becomes chemistry, or becomes hesitation. Now let's circle back to the human piece of all this, because it matters more than a lot of people admit. If this next part plays out the way it's being described, New England could enter 2026 with a strength that isn't showing up on a stat sheet. The talk is that Terrell Williams, after beating prostate cancer and returning to the building, is stepping into a high-ranking role. That kind of presence can be massive. Williams wasn't just a play caller. He helped reshape the tone of the front seven, the physical identity against the run, and the overall urgency of that defensive culture. When someone like that moves upward, he can influence hiring, player profiles, and how the staff communicates with the locker room. That can either stabilize everything or complicate it, depending on how the next coordinator decision goes. And that brings us to the final fork in the road. Does this promotion strengthen the obvious internal path? Williams up, Core elevated, continuity protected? Or does it give cover for Vrabel to bring in someone else without immediate backlash? What's the bigger urgency to you right now? Keeping the defense's voice consistent, or letting Vrabel fully install his own structure? Because none of this is isolated. The coordinator decision, the Crosby temptation, the patience with Campbell, and the new role for Terrell Williams all point to the same core question. Who do the Patriots choose to be when the pressure hits? That was the promise from the jump. Connect the dots. Continuity versus shortcuts. Confidence versus fear. If Foxborough sticks to conviction, 2026 can feel strong before Week 1 even arrives. Now it's on you. Which of these decisions worries you the most right now? Drop it in the comments. And if you're riding with me, hit like and subscribe, because this offseason is going to test what we really believe about the Patriot way.